Next subtopic is the war in Europe. And you should remember a little bit about this because we told you that Napoleon actually sold us Louisiana for such a basement bargain price because he was trying to do a conquest of Europe, which meant a war with Great Britain. So when we talk about war in Europe, that's what we're talking about. Now, even though we weren't involved, this war in Europe, which involved Great Britain and France, created some serious problems for the United States. So we're going to be caught in the middle like we always have been. So this war in Europe that Napoleon's fighting to conquer all of Europe is involving Great Britain and France, and this is going to create some serious problems for us. Now, really, Napoleon was making great hay because in 1807, he had conquered almost all of Europe with the exception of Russia and Great Britain. Those were the only two countries that he had not conquered by 1807, was Russia and Great Britain. Well, the French were still fighting like crazy, and they were stronger, their army was stronger than their navy, but Great Britain's navy was much stronger than their army. So the United States kind of looked at first at the conflict between Great Britain and France as a great opportunity for America, because what would happen with those two countries that would benefit us during their wartime? What would we do? Now, are Great Britain and France fighting against each other in this deal? They are. So we're going to make good profit. How are we going to do that? We're going to sell goods to them. Okay? Now, Great Britain, we're not real friendly with Great Britain. Now, is that correct at this point? Right? So we'd be more of a France ally. Would that be correct? Okay? Well, Great Britain, because of their navy, was controlling the seas. Right? They have a better navy. So they were making sure that France did not receive any American supplies. Okay? So we're thinking we're going to make good profit in trading with both countries while they're at war. They're going to need supplies. We're going to make some money. Well, the British, who controlled the open seas, basically put together a plan to make sure that France didn't receive any supplies from the United States. And how did they do that? The British started seizing American ships and impressing American sailors, which we've talked about before. Okay, so this really is going to cause some friction between the United States and Great Britain, is it not? Because they're seizing our ships and impressing our sailors. That doesn't mean they were impressing them, make them say, hey, those guys are pretty cool. That meant they were making them serve in the British Navy. Well, to make matters even worse, that same year of 1807, Great Britain passed a series of laws that were known as the Orders in Council. In 1807, while they're seizing our ships and impressing our sailors, Great Britain passed a series of laws known as the Orders in Council. Now think about this. You know what the Orders in Council said? And you'll need to know this for your test. It forbid any American ship from entering any foreign port under the control of France. Great Britain passed this law, the Orders in Council, which forbid any American ship from entering any foreign port under the control of France. So in 1807, Great Britain passed a series of laws known as the Orders in Council. And these laws forbid any American ship from entering any foreign port under the control of France. What do you think France did to counter the Orders in Council? To counter, what do you think they did? They passed their own laws that forbid the Americans from trading with any nations under the control of Britain. So we're sitting here right in the middle of a mess again. So both these countries have violated what long-standing principle? On, as far as using the seas. What have they violated? The International Agreement of Freedom of the Seas, which they really can't do. So both countries violate this long-standing principle of foreign relations among all countries by violating what's called the freedom of the seas. Can each of those countries tell us where we can and cannot trade? Really, they cannot. And if we don't like it, what can we do? What can we do if we don't like it? Get in the war. That's right. Well, President Jefferson does not want war with either country. Because what did he just do? What did Congress just do we talked about yesterday? They cut what? Funding to the military. So we have a very weak military because he's made cuts there. So certainly Jefferson does not want war with either Great Britain or France. So what he did is he basically took American ships off the high seas, quit trading with both countries until this conflict between the two ended. So he backed off. He backed off. Well, can he do that himself? What's he have to do? How's he going to get that done? How's he going to make that rule that American ships aren't going to trade anymore? What's he got to do to make that stick? Come on. What's he got to do? He can't say it himself, right? Who can? Yes, they have to. It has to go to Congress, and they have to pass a law stating that. And that's what our next subtopic is, the Embargo Act of 1807. So Jefferson wants to end this American conflict with Great Britain and France. So he wants to take American ships off the high seas. He can't do it himself. So he urges Congress to pass a law called an embargo. Okay, an embargo. So Jefferson again, he does not want war with either country. He knows the only way to avoid war is to take the ships off the high seas. He can't do that himself, so he urges Congress to pass a law called an embargo. And this embargo would forbid American ships to trade with any foreign country whatsoever, including France and Great Britain. And Congress passed that new law, or embargo, and it was called the Embargo Act of 1807. And basically what it did is it forbid any American ship to leave for any foreign port. So we are ourselves violating that international agreement of what? Freedom of the seas. Even we're even violating our own principles, so to speak. Okay? So the Embargo Act is passed. It will forbid any American ship to leave for any foreign port. We will abandon the principle of freedom of the seas as well. And how do you think that went over in America? Bad. Give me the type of people that were upset. 3 different type of people were pretty upset about this. Who would be upset, Macklin, about this new?
Sailors.
Absolutely, sailors, because now they're unemployed. So sailors were very upset about the Embargo Act of 1807. Very upset, because they're unemployed. Who else is upset, Brady? You darn right, merchants are. Because they cannot ship their products and make any money. And sometimes if you don't ship your products, you lose money. Okay, so you're perfect so far. Who else is upset? Who's the third group that's upset? Who supplies the merchants with their goods? Farmers. Very good. So farmers are upset. They can't sell their crops to the merchants because the merchants can't ship them overseas, and they can't ship them overseas because the sailors are now unemployed because there's no ships going and they're upset. So this Embargo Act was a bit of a disaster. It upset merchants, it upset farmers, it upset sailors. And from the outset, could it be fully enforced very well? How can you control all that? So from the very outset of the act, it could not be fully enforced. What Americans did, obviously, is they smuggled goods across the border to Canada. And some even left their ships overseas in order to trade sailing under British or French licenses. So they loaded up their ships and took off and stayed overseas and traded overseas under French and British licenses. Some went to Canada to trade. Some parked their ships off the shores of what? Canada. Okay? So it didn't work very well at all. Well, these merchants really were the ones that were feeling the biggest pinch. They were losing the most. And so they demanded that Jefferson and Congress repeal the Embargo Act. They demanded it, protested. They were joined by farmers and unemployed sailors, but the voice that really counted in this repeal of the act would be merchants. They had the most clout, so to speak. Well, finally, on March 1st of 1809, Jefferson asked Congress to repeal the Embargo Act of 1807. It was just 3 days before Jefferson left office as President of the United States. Okay? So Congress did repeal the act just 3 days before Jefferson left office. So Jefferson asked him to repeal it. They repealed it. 3 days later, Jefferson was no longer President of the United States. So it happened very, very late in his administration. Okay? All right, let's have a little review here. And this will be what's going to happen tomorrow. So this is the review for tomorrow's text. Okay? And what you're going to have tomorrow is you're going to have 10 multiple choice questions and 10 fill in the blank for tomorrow. So this is tomorrow's AP exam, part 1, on the presidency of Thomas Jefferson and the Louisiana Purchase. And I'm going to kind of try to go in order here, pretty much, you know, kind of. Okay? So, Michaela, my dear, can you answer this question for me? Why was the news of Louisiana becoming a French possession so alarming to President Jefferson? Because remember, it used to belong to Spain. So when Jefferson found out that Louisiana all of a sudden belonged to the French, why was he alarmed?
Oh, we used all the water routes, and we had an agreement to use the mouth of the deposit.
With who? Who did we have that agreement with? Could have been France, because we were worried. So who did we have it with? What country owned Louisiana before France? Okay, so the news of Louisiana becoming a French possession alarmed President Jefferson because the United States had the right of deposit with which country? Spain, not France. Okay, so there's your answer. That's why he was alarmed, because we had the right of deposit, especially in New Orleans, with Spain and not France. Okay, Kristen, who was the man that President Jefferson sent to negotiate a possible purchase of New Orleans and Western Florida? Who did he send to do that? To France. Who did he send to France? Who did President Jefferson send?
Robert R. Livingston.
Robert R. Livingston. Very good. Robert R. Livingston is the man that President Jefferson sent to France to negotiate a possible purchase of New Orleans and Western Florida. Remember, he went there to buy that first, okay? Okay, Dane, what was the original offer that President Jefferson sent to Napoleon for the possible purchase of New Orleans and Western Florida? What was the original offer?
Originally offered $10 million.
10 million just for those two areas. Very good. Okay, Elise, tell me the reason why Napoleon sold the Louisiana Territory to the United States.
We needed money to fight.
Very good. And maybe think about this a little bit. He was going to try to conquer all of Europe, which meant that he no doubt would be in a war with Great Britain, and he needed the money to fight a country as strong as Great Britain. Very good. Okay, Brady. Prior to the departure for their study of the Louisiana Territory, tell me some things Lewis and Clark did prior to leaving. Prior to taking off from St. Louis, what did they do? I mean, they just didn't get on the boat and go, did they? Well, give me an example. What did they do? They requisitioned. They didn't buy because the government sent them, so they're requisitioning. You know, and if I want new pencils for you guys in this class, I requisition them from the school. I don't buy them, although I know sometimes I don't like to wait, so I do, but I requisition those, and then they pay for them and I give them to you. So what's some things they requisitioned then? What would you need on the trip? Yeah, they requisitioned 15 54 caliber rifles, right? What else did they do? Well, I didn't really, you probably don't unless you got them off the movie, right? But they did a whole what of gunpowder. Anybody know? A whole what? Fort's worth of gunpowder. What else did they do? They must have picked, they go by themselves? Or what are they doing? They recruited how many people? 45, okay? So they requisitioned rifles. Okay, they screened and picked 45 men to go with them. They took a fort's worth of gunpowder. Those types of things. Okay, all right. All right, moving on. Ivan? What did Mandan tribal leader Black Cap provide the expedition with?
Sold them food.
Sold them food, very good.
We're allowed to hunt buffalo.
Okay, which meant that they took what on the expedition? No, I mean meat and
meat.
and hides.
Meat and
Okay,
hides.
what else did he do?
And gave them advice to get up the Missouri River.
Very good, yeah, I would know that, very good, perfect. Gave him food, he didn't give them, he supplied them with food they could purchase. He let them hunt buffalo, which would provide buffalo meat and hides. And then he gave them advice on how to get up the Missouri River. Okay, JC, my dear, prior to their departure from the Mandan villages in early April of 1805, what did Lewis and Clark do?
Is that when you sent the boat back with 12 men and live specimens and bones and furs and plants and all that stuff?
Well, all that stuff includes live specimens such as magpies and prairie dogs. What else?
Bones, furs, and plants.
Okay, and but most importantly, he sent back what? If I'm going to leave you for a long time over the summer, and I want you to know what I'm doing, you might appreciate me sending you live magpies and prairie dogs and those things, but what else might what you want me to tell you? I'm doing. How's it going so far? So he sent back what? Well, they sent back what else? Letters, but they called them something else.
Journals.
Dispatches. Okay, that's that era time for letters. Okay, so he sent back dispatches, sent back live specimens of magpies and prairie dogs, sent back bones and furs of animals and plants, like JC said. So just know those things that were sent back. Okay, Casey, my dear, have a little self-confidence in yourself here. No more I don't knows. Give me a couple reasons why it was so darn difficult for the expedition to cross the Great Falls of the Missouri.
There was 5 different waterfalls.
There was what?
5 different.
Very good. 5 cascading falls.
And then they have to take all their stuff with them across 17 miles. And it was mostly uphill. There was mosquitoes and there was grizzly bears.
Very good. There's a very good answer. That a girl. Very girl. Taylor. During the time the expedition stayed with the Nez Perce Indians, what did that tribe supply them with? Gave them information to go from the Clearwater to the Snake to the Columbia, right? What else did they give them? They stayed there a couple of weeks. What did they give them? They gave them what? No, Shoshone gave them the horses. That was at the Three Forks of the Missouri. The Nez Perce they met with right after they got over the Lolo Trail. And what did the Nez Perce give them besides information on the water route? What? They let them cut down 5 trees to make into canoes. How could you forget that? After that wonderful description I gave you of canoe cutting. What else? Smoked salmon, dried salmon, actually, that might have been smoked. And what else? Edible plants. Okay, know those things. Very good. Josh? Tell me some of the things that Lewis and Clark brought back from their journey after completing that 8,000-mile trip.
Dirt samples.
What's that?
Dirt samples.
Soil samples would be better, yeah. They went all that way and brought back only soil samples?
No,
Okay, what else they bring back? The most important thing they brought back was what? Maps and journals.
oh yeah.
Lauren, how about another one? Insect samples, very good. How about another one, Delaney?
Lots of bones and rocks.
Okay, bones and samples of rocks. Maddie, any more?
the various animals.
Very good, yeah. So just know a few of those things that they brought back. Not all of them, but a few. Okay? All right. Olivia, who is the member of the Corps of Discovery who accidentally shot Lewis in the buttocks, mistaking him for an elk? Who was that guy? Crazy Pete who? Not Duzanis. Crazy one-eyed Pete Krzak. Yep, very good. Yep, know him. He was the guy that accidentally shot Lewis in the butt, mistaking him for an elk. Tasia, what was the name of Clark's slave that was set free after the expedition reached St. Louis in 1806? York. Very good. Hunter, where did the Corps of Discovery spend their second winter? Second winter. Maybe. Where they spend their first winter? Mandan villages. Where they spend their second winter? That was the first one.
Yeah,
Now, where'd they spend their second winter? They went to Mandan villages, Fort Clatsop. Very good. Fort Clatsop. Okay, this is kind of an interesting one. We'll see if Macklin can pull it out. What was the purchase price the United States paid for all of the Louisiana Territory? 50 million. So how much was that an acre? How much was it an acre? 3 cents an acre. Yep, very good. 15 million, 3 cents an acre. That was after interest, though, right? Okay. So 15 million, I'm not going to ask you exactly, but the original purchase price was 15 million, but it turned out with interest to be about 3 cents an acre. Pretty good deal. Cherith, the Corps of Discovery were looking for a water route from the Mississippi River to the Pacific Ocean. What did that go down in history?